Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Santiago De Cuba, which is a board game by Michael Renick. Takes about 45 minutes to play and plays 2 to 4 players. Now the idea of the game is that you are traveling around this little port area trying to visit people, collect different resources, use buildings and basically trade in different kind of commodities to the port based on the demand that they want in order to get points. The game is pretty light in its feel. I'll put it on the higher end of the light scale or the lower end of the medium light scale, which is pretty strange for a Euro style game of this feel, and the rules overhead as well are pretty low. So all you do on your turn is you move a car around this port and everybody has control of that car. So when you move something, it does affect all the other players. And as I said, you are visiting these different people and collecting goods or maybe collecting money or stuff like that. But you can move to the first place for free, but for every place more than the first place, you have to pay an additional coin. So you've got this almost like economy that you need to have in order to move further and do what you exactly want to do. Otherwise, you're going to be at the mercy of where other players leave you because you can only go to that first place for free. And you're going to, as I said, you're going to collect different like oranges, or you're going to collect, I think it's cigars or money, or you can buy buildings and stuff like this. But once you've moved to that place, not only do you get the reward, you also get to use a building based on the colour of the rose there, or the flower there. So you've got like, I think it's 4 or 5 different colours, and all those 5 different colours have a different section on the board which kind of dictate the buildings you can use on that turn. And that works in a very simple worker placement style manner. All you do is you place your worker on the building and use it. If someone else is already on that building, then you can't use it. And likewise, if you are already on that building, you can't use it. I think one of the people you visit gives an exception to that. And those buildings are pretty interesting. They let you convert goods into other goods. They can kind of let you sell stuff, which normally you can't do until you get to the port area. They let you manipulate what the market wants or what the demand is for the items. Like, for example, if someone else has a lot of goods that you don't have and it's about to come to the port, which is where you sell your goods for the points, you can just crash the market and make sure that nobody else gets those points that you would miss out on. The kind of player interaction in this is pretty interesting because it's not mean in any way, shape or form, but it's pretty meaningful because, as I said, you can go to places where you know other people want to go. You can, as I said, you can manipulate that market to suit you and not suit your opponent. You can go to certain spots that let you flip people over, which you might know that other people want. So you've got some good, as I said, some good player interaction here, which is quite meaty and but not overly mean, as I said, which is a really nice feel to it. The flow of the game is pretty smooth. I said there's not that many places. I think there's only like 9 places or so. One of those places lets you go to these lets you place one of your markers on these different buildings or on a building of your choice, and then anytime someone else uses that building, you get a point in return. So you've got a slight touch of engine building there. Very, it's very much a smidgen of that. But again, you've got the point-to-point movement, you've got the worker placement, you've got the commodity speculation of the goods, which is really interesting because normally they're all just worth, I believe, 2 points each. But you can manipulate the board by shifting them to worth 3 points each or even 4 points each. As soon as it gets more to 4 points each, then the board so the commodities get wiped off and new ones come in. And once that's done 7 times, then the game is over. So it's quite a punchy game. It moves quickly. There's a lot of little things to consider, but not overwhelming in the slightest. It just has a very chilled out feel to it. And it's just enjoyable. It's very, it's got a very charming feel to it, which it's kind of hard to put my finger on how to explain that, but this game has a lot of charm. The balance of the game is very well done. The different value of the goods is, some goods are easier to get than others, but then obviously they're going to be quicker to sell, and they're going to get gobbled up quite quickly. The pressure of getting into the port quicker than other players is really there because you want to make sure that you're the first in there, so you get the first dibs on selling what you need to sell. But at the same time, you might want one of the spots that go before that, so you can you might think, am I going to go take those oranges? But hope my opponent doesn't go to the port. So, I want to, not only do I want to get the oranges, I want to go to the port first as well. And you've got to really kind of speculate on what your opponent's going to do, because you don't want to get shut out on or lumbered with a bunch of goods that you can't sell, which is really interesting. Because again, the return of the goods at the end of the game is nowhere near as good as if you were to sell them at the port. So you've got a lot to consider here. The uptime just flows very nicely. I said just move to one of those spaces, place one of your workers in one of the buildings, and you're done. On to the next player. The interaction is really juicy. The replayability is quite interesting in itself, because all those different spots where all the different people go are completely, they're tiles basically, and you can completely mix them up and put them randomly on the different positions on the board, which again is going to give you a completely different feel every time. Same goes with the buildings, because you mix them up and then put them on all the different spots, but meaning that when you go to these different workers, the rosette colour on them, which dictate the buildings you can use, is going to be completely different game by game. So you're going to get a slightly different feel every time. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be, it's always in the same kind of vein. There's not a huge scope of variation here, but it's always going to have that different tweak on it, just to kind of prioritise your moves and maybe a bit differently each time, depending on how close those buildings are to the port and so on. The timestamp is just about right for this. I think if it was go on more than an hour, I think that probably would be outstaying its welcome, because as I said, even though it is a pretty, there's a lot to think about, but it is very light. And the depth isn't quite to the degree of a medium weight Euro game. So it is on that lighter scale, but for a lighter game, the decisions are there. I think the game board looks absolutely lovely. It has this very muted, chilled out, this port illustration. It's a very beautiful board. I like the illustrations of all the people. The buildings are pretty basic, but they look fine. It's a very pleasing little board. Comes in a relatively small box, and yeah, it just looks really nice, and the look suits the mechanic very well. The feel of the game comes through because of the way it looks and the way it feels. The component quality is absolutely fine. In fact, it's good. No complaints whatsoever. Nice wooden pieces for your commodities. Nice wooden car. The tiles are nice. The board's nice. And yeah, so no complaints about components at all. The theme of the game is just, for a Euro game, it works very well. Don't get me wrong, it's not overly thematic, but it's nice to collect those goods by perusing through the city and just selling them when you get to the port. If you skip over the port, you just basically, the value of the commodities go up, so you can use that to your advantage. If maybe your opponent has a bunch of stuff and you can't sell this turn, you can just skip over that port and hope the next time you get around, then you are good to go and get some money in return. Now, or some points in return. So I like the importance of how the balance between the points and the money, because you need the money to do what you want to do, but it counts for nothing at the end of the game. But obviously you need the points to win. Now that being said, the points of the game, it seems like this is a game of very small margins if you want to win. At the end of the game, there's probably naturally going to be a very few points in it. Again, the difference between the winner and the runners up is going to be minuscule. So those decisions are almost micro decisions which are going to make you stand out from the rest of the pack, because the game is so well balanced that I think no matter what you do, you're going to end up doing pretty well anyway. That's just from my own experience from it. But yeah, overall, this is a very charming little game. One that I definitely recommend you check out if you need something that's got a bit of bite to it, but comes in under that hour mark. You can teach this to almost anybody. You don't have to be a Eurogamer to enjoy it. You can teach, as I said, because the game just works so smoothly. It's very broken down into very small little chunks. Just move the car, get the reward, use the building, get the reward, and that's it. The only thing you have to worry about other than that is getting to that port, which is where you just sell the goods based on demands, which are basically determined by dice rolls. And if you are the one to trigger the, basically sell the last good of a type, you get to pick which commodities are up for sale next round, because I think out of the 6 different commodities, only 5 are up for sale each round. And even then, some of those commodities you might roll a 0, which means there's no demand for them at all. So yeah, overall, I really like this game. It's lovely. I would get, maybe mileage-wise, it hasn't got huge legs to it, but you know, I can see getting, you know, maybe 5-6 plays out of it. And even then, it's a small box game, so it can stay on my shelf, ready to play later down the line when you've recharged on it and ready to go again. Yeah, a lovely feel of a game. Gets a good verdict from me, which comes in about a 7 out of 10. I think that's just about right. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. Go check it out if you do like your lighter weight Euros. And maybe you just want to get into that Euro feel of the game, and you know, you find maybe heavy games a bit daunting. This is a good stepping stone to get into the genre. If you did enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.